Hey guys, it's 2023 and there's a good chance that the lying, corrupt, self-serving and sociopathic Tory party will begrudgingly announce a general election at some point this year. I mean, I think it has to have taken place by the end of next year, so by some point this year we will at least know when it is. I'm doing a series of videos that seek to preempt the attack lines that will be adopted by the Conservatives in campaign mode. And, given they've improved precisely nothing in the UK in the last 12 years, the GE is set to be a veritable festival of gaslights. So, what have you actually done that's good?
Well, you see that seat that you're sitting on?
Yeah?
Well, we gave you that.
No, you didn't.
No, we didn't.
Weird. So, what does predicting a festival of gaslights actually entail? Well, you and we get to preempt the laughable nonsense they're going to come out with when they try to gloss over their failures and dodge valid scrutiny. And because the British media are largely toothless, subservient sycophants when it comes to holding them to account, videos like this may fuck around and play some modest role in the political discourse. So, the last video was the economy, this time the NHS. We are currently witnessing the collapse of the National Health Service in real time. It is the largest employer in the UK and a safety net for millions who either cannot afford or who do not wish to ring in the private healthcare nightmare that we see over in the United States. So, what is that like? So, in America, people get sick and then they can maybe no longer work to help to pay off their medical bills. Or in other cases, maybe they feel they have to resign and then they surrender their private medical insurance that they had as part of that job. So then they might end up with hundreds of thousands of pounds of medical debt. They end up having to sell their homes or plunder their life savings or max out loans just to fucking survive. Plus, their welfare system is so ferociously shit. I mean, like, in terms of government housing and then, like, the lack of employment rights, in theory, you could get fired at the drop of a hat, get sick, have no private medical insurance to cover you, be forced to sell your home. Like, the whole exercise could leave you literally broke and homeless. And these are not edge cases, by the way. In the US, the most frequently cited reason for bankruptcy, 2/3 in fact, is medical debt. But anyway, back to Blighty. Because at least we still have a functioning welfare system and socialised healthcare, right? I mean, yeah, ish. You know, we have a functioning welfare system for now. But make no mistake, I mean, there are senior cabinet ministers who cannot keep their pants dry at the thought of replicating American-style public services. We're going to end up like, I get it. So the energy companies and the banks, they get a bailout, but what, I'm out on the street, am I? Well, that's welfare. And the Tories are going to be like, yep, that is welfare. This is capitalism. Thank you and good night. Like, under the Tories, honestly, it feels like we still have a welfare safety net in the same way as we still have Towie. Like, yeah, I mean, like, it's there for now, but you just kind of, you know that soon it'll be gone. And with healthcare? So in the UK, our wards are full. And a chief medic a couple of days ago, Dr. Adrian Boyle, has said about 500 people are dying every week unnecessarily because the NHS is so unutterably fucked. People are dying in corridors, in ambulance queues. Like, your gran should be in a comfy bed inside the hospital with a nurse checking on her every half hour. Instead, she's stuck in an ambulance in the hospital car park because the ambulance can't dispatch her because the wards are all full and there's no staff to check anybody in. Like, how wild is it that shit has got this bad after the deadly heights of a fucking pandemic? Like, you think ambulance queues, no staff, not enough beds, you think, okay, you know, a respiratory disease propelling chunks of the population into the arms of the emergency services, sure, things are going to get busy. But I don't know if we ever imagined field hospital conditions in a first world country, like corpses in the car park, bodies in the waiting room, because what, like we've been hit with a new wave of January. And all of this is the responsibility and fault of the Conservative Party. The Tories have been in charge since 2010. That's nearly 13 years. Unlucky for some, or almost all of us in this case. We've gone from charming and at times amusing episodes of Casualty or Holby City to Saving Private Ryan on their watch. And it's been the same throughout, from Cameron to May to Johnson to Truss to Sunak. At every juncture, they've sought to defund and disparage the socialised healthcare that millions of us rely on and that serves as the UK's largest employer. This is what gets me, man. Like, every time there's a leadership race, every hustings, every general election, the Conservative Party and their dutiful mouthpieces, the STEM newspapers, that's Sun, Telegraph, Express, Mail, try to sell us the latest head on top of the snake, as though this guy is the fresh face of modern conservatism. This lady is the one that's gonna fix shit. This buffoon is gonna let the British lion roar. But the machinery and ideology of the Tories is always the same. Like, whoever is at the top is just branding. I mean, David Cameron was heralded as a moderniser, as a feminist, as a green advocate. May went on about helping the just about managings. Johnson was out there saying he's going to hire 50,000 new nurses and build 40 new hospitals. Johnson pledges to fix social care once and for all. Truss and Sunak both committed to reducing backlogs and applying funding where it was needed. But every time, every cabinet, every health secretary, every administration, the script is always the same. They commit to helping the NHS and then send it into arrears by making cuts and forcing it to hire expensive agency staff. And it's almost always under the guise of efficiency. And let's talk about those agencies, shall we? Sometimes those agencies make tens of thousands of pounds for supplying one doctor. Sometimes those agencies make hundreds of millions of pounds in profit. Sometimes those agencies are owned by Tory fucking donors. This is the thing, man. Like, it's so slap you around the face with a wet kipper obvious how this works. They cut back on staff. The hospital are forced to hire in a temporary nurse or a contracted in daily rate doctor. That doctor might cost the NHS £7,000. The agency take a generous chunk of that. The hospital can't get out of it because legally they have to have X number of medics for Y number of patients. They literally have to have the extra doctor or nurse there. So step in Dr. Philip Fairfax Smythe, who does 8 hours that day on a hiked up daily rate. The agency make a killing, the hospital foot the bill, and the owner or majority shareholder of the agency goes and buys a new Ferrari. And then the Tories have the gall to be like, oh, the NHS is shit. Look how much money they're wasting on temporary doctors. And it's like, yes, you fucking idiots. Because your party, who ideologically hate the NHS and who force it to hire from private agencies, who quite often have donor links to, yes, your own party, have made it this way. Like, how are you not getting this? Which, brings me back to the question that I always ask. Are they really this stupid, or are they just hoping you are? Of course, as I say, when they make the cuts that necessitate the expensive temporary hiring, and therefore colossal cash waste, the cuts are almost always dressed up as efficiency. Have you ever noticed how many Tory efficiencies never seem to result in actual efficiency? It's funny, like, their quest for it never seems to arrive at the conclusion that they might actually have to invest some money to save money further on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always like, well, we've looked into it, and what we've decided is to achieve efficiency, we're going to have to savage this old folks home over here and sell this shit off. Like, that is always the conclusion of these efficiency drives. It's always cuts, isn't it? It's always like I'd love to run a freedom of information request to look at every efficiency drive and see how many arrived at the conclusion that they might actually have to spend some money to save it further down the line. Instead, it's always like, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to slash the number of non-medical staff. That'll make things cheaper and more efficient. And you're like, well, right, but that is not actually going to end up making things cheaper or more efficient at all. And they would be like, well, what are you talking about? Fewer people, fewer salaries, other people pick up the slack. How is that not more efficient? And then you would, try and explain it to them. Like, well, if you make people work longer hours for less money. They're going to call in more sick days, they'll resign, they'll go and work somewhere else, you'll have to replace them. Plus, it's going to cost you another 20% of their salary every time you replace someone, because you're going to have to pay a recruitment firm. You'll lose knowledge, you'll waste time cross-training, things will get slower, plus morale will crash, people will slack off more. It's just so simplistic. It's like government by 6-year-olds. They're like, yeah, slash it, there we go, fixed it. The Tories' quest for efficiency is like you going to your dad, like, but tell you what, Dad, to make this house more efficient, you should insulate it better. No, we'll just get rid of half the radiators. No, but that's not more efficient. That's just making everything shitter. Oh, it'll be cheaper. No, not in the long run. Plus, it'll be freezing in the kids' rooms. Well, that's not my problem. Tell us to take some personal responsibility. Look, I don't want to labour the point. Let's just say this, right? The Tory unquenchable thirst for efficiency invariably results in inefficiency. Like, take the now Chancellor and then Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt. He, in the austerity years, had this campaign to charge foreigners for using the NHS. Now, he reckoned it would save £200 million, and the right-wing rags were like, whoa, yeah! This kitty's got claws. Go Hunt. Save some tax money, bash the NHS, punish some foreigners. Oh, I think I've made my pants pregnant. But official figures put that 200 million figure at 15% of that. Not 200 million, but 33 million. And then the New Statesman at the time reported that actually 21 million of that 33 million had already been recouped. So that left the net benefit of addressing health tourism in the UK at £12 million. So 5% of the original figure. 12 million was what he was looking to get back. And quite embarrassingly, Jeremy Hunt's crackdown on health tourism campaign cost more than the money he was seeking to recoup. Efficiency. Well, if you want to talk efficiency, we've never given the NHS so much money. They will obviously cry. We give the NHS more money now than we ever have before. You can guarantee they're going to wheel out these lines as we get closer to the next GE. And it's like, yes, you are allocating a lot of public money to this institution. It is just a shame that you are funneling it out to these private agencies. They're going to seek to blame it on diversity managers and inclusion coordinators. But I don't think you get to sit there and complain about those jobs when maybe the previous night you were at a white tie dinner quaffing champagne with a Tory donor who maybe took 350 million quid out of the NHS in profits for his supply firm for staff that should have been hired by the NHS directly. But let me get specific for you. Tory donors like Lord Michael Ashcroft are shareholders in medical supply firms. He was the non-executive chairman of a $1 billion company called Impellum, which owns a medical supply company in the UK called Medax. Medax were awarded one of the largest contracts in the pandemic, £350 million. Still, at least we had that money that week, thanks to Brexit. Ashcroft has donated over £11 million to the Tories over the years, and at one point had over half the shares in Impellum, so a controlling stake, until 2010, when, according to The Guardian, he moved the shares into the Lombard Trust, presumably so he could say, oh, I'm no longer a shareholder, but the beneficiaries of that trust were his children and grandchildren. Now, I don't know what happened between 2010 and 2022, but it appears that he reacquired the shares or built up a relationship back with Impellum somehow, because only last year he announced he was selling his 65% stake in Impellum to focus more time on his charity work. What a good egg. So just take that in for a minute. A Tory donor who has given them £11 million over the years, the company that he was non-exec chairman for somehow acquire a £350 million contract, which at best he will benefit hugely from, and at worst will benefit his children. I mean, look, I'm not a journalist, I'm not a lawyer, but does that not fucking stink to high heaven? Have I got something wrong here? And that is the shit. right there. They milk the system dry. They run it into the ground till there's queues for A&E and people dying in the corridors. And then they have the gall to say, well, where does all the money go? While people like Ashcroft and Baroness Moan swan off on a golden yacht. And these are not isolated cases. This is how this works. They donate £1 million or £5 million and they get £350 million back. That is a colossal return. It's almost as good as jumping on my Patreon and paying £3 a month or £5 a month and getting elite tier content like this.